the HRC has asked us to sort of embrace heritage more broadly across the HRC in terms of funded projects, and this is one example. I should
yeah, as Nick said, I'm Steffan, and I'm from the Digital Building Heritage Group at De Montfort University. My background is in architecture, historic buildings, and digital reconstruction. So I'm sort of mostly responsible for the digital reconstructions, but there's lots of my colleagues that are responsible for different parts of what I'm going to show you today. Just a quick little bit about the Affective Digital Histories project. Basically, it's about telling the stories of people who lived and worked at deindustrialized places, and two of the locations that were under the umbrella of the project was the Leicester Cultural Heritage Quarter and the Digital Glossop project, which is the one that we worked on. The project is funded by the Art and Humanities Research Council, and it's a collaboration project between De Montfort University, where I'm from, and Leicester University. I'm not sure if they're here today. It's not finished yet, so basically what I'm showing you today is more of a sample, and just bear that in mind. But it is due to be launched in April. So just a little bit about Glossop. It's a post-industrial town nestled on the western edge of the Peak District. It's famous mainly for its cotton mills, which reached their peak at the end of the 19th century, and then began to decline and deindustrialize then during the beginning of the 20th century. You can see in some of the images here that the chimneys and the mills are the most sort of prominent parts of the town, and they're quite iconic. The project aims to change how people engages with history, and the main sort of vehicle we used for this was through the form of a mobile application, and also some exhibition models that could also show off different aspects of the project, but the main thing was to create an app. So basically, once we decided we were going to focus on the mills, it was a question of gathering all the information together and deciding which time periods we were going to focus on, because there's 200 years of history with the mills. So we decided that we were going to focus on 1880, because that's when the mills were at their peak, and then the process of deindustrializing from 1950 through to 1990, and then rather than say the current day, we say 2010, just to cap it off, because obviously the app is intended to go on for a while longer, and it was going to sort of age with us. The final date would constantly be changing. So we picked these 5 dates to focus on because I was going to do a digital reconstruction of the mills and the Glossop town to show how it's changed over this period of time. So we needed to really sort of narrow it down to phasing. So you can see on the left there's an 1880s map, and on the right there's current. You can't really take too much from this, but it was just to sort of show the concept. This part was mainly done by my colleague Stella. Well, I think, yeah, Stella was responsible for this bit entirely. And basically, the concept of the app, we needed to sort of have a vehicle that was that people could relate to, especially the community heritage group. So we decided to use a newspaper as a metaphor for this, and then so when people were using the app, they could go through content just like with a normal newspaper. But the idea was that you could then have clips and other images you could bring up, and then also a digital model that I sort of create, or one part of that would show sort of how the town's changed over the various sort of 135 years or whatever it is. You can see on the left there's a little clip from Harry Potter. So the idea was with the app that you'd be able to sort of, I said that the images would be giving a preview of what you're actually going to be seeing, so it would be a very sort of entertaining app, but also something that's very familiar. So here's some sort of just example pages in the sort of early development stages. So you can see the one on the left would be for sort of 1880s period, and then the one on the right, it's not going to be this one, but a slightly sort of newer version, but obviously we intend to be a lot more accurate in the 5 stages in the papers that we're going to base this on in the final product. One other quick thing as well, yeah, so the time bar at the top you see is the slider, and that goes from 1880 to the present day. And then in the bottom, for example, you could click the corner and see sort of different pages. So it works as closely as we could get to an actual newspaper. And then from the app as well, then you could select different things and get information from them. So it was really meant to be sort of visually stimulating, so you get access to all this content through images and pick what you wanted and reach out and sort of grab it. That was the sort of main impetus behind it. So on the left there you can see a map of one of the mills of Glossop with some little sort of markers attached to which you could bring stuff up. And they might then take you to a view like this. Again, this is all sort of early concept stuff that a couple of months ago again that we're talking about. And then it'll bring up other data points and bits of information based on what you can see. So again, sort of really sort of strong visual sort of things. So as I said, the first thing to do was gather as much information as possible for me, so I could reconstruct all the buildings that we're talking about. Leicester University spent a lot of time up in the Glossop library, really bringing in everything that they could in terms of the information. The most handiest things were the aerial sort of images that we have here. This is one of Wren's nest in Glossop. Because obviously for the 1880s reconstruction, we didn't have any pictures of 1880. We didn't have any aerial images or anything like that. So what it came down to was using an ordnance survey map, which is a fairly good quality one, fairly accurate, and then combining it with the earliest photos that we had and some of the rains on site to paint the most accurate picture as possible of the 1880s reconstruction of Glossop at that time. Also another method that we used, which is quite interesting for this project, there were parts of the building and shells of the building that were still remaining on site. Quite dangerous to go into, you wouldn't want to really risk it to go in there just to take some measurements to get an accurate sort of reading of everything. But they were still existing in some form, but as I said, really inaccessible. And a lot of it had been taken down. So one form of measuring this and getting accurate results was laser scanning. This is quite a modern method for building surveying at the moment, and basically it meant that I could just take sample bits of laser scanning for each project and then just measure off it, so I could have the overall heights of buildings and window measurements and things like that to save me going around with a really long tape measure. As I said, some of the buildings I couldn't have got to anyway. The useful thing about mills as well is it's quite repetitive, so this is why in these images here I didn't need much more for this particular building, just for one corner, because the windows were equally spaced out the other side, so I had pretty much all the dimensions I need from these brief scans. We need to, even if we narrowed it down to the mills in Glossop, there's still quite a lot of mills in Glossop, and even then each mill is composed of lots of different buildings. So we decided to focus on the key buildings in Glossop and two main mills in particular. So this was Howard Town Mill, Wren's Nest, the library, the town hall, so key buildings like that. So we focused on doing those in detail and also modelling the town and general sort of massing to show how it had changed over time. So there again you can see the buildings in red there, the ones that we focused on. As I said, the rest of the town would be done in a masking model, but not the same detail as the ones in red. And there again is just another sort of 1880s reconstruction of the Howard Town Mill and the Wren's Nest over there on the left. But you can see that, for example, this Howard Town Mill you've seen here, I think from the town hall right through to the end here, it spanned over 500 meters. So each cluster of the mill was significantly big. So there's a more sort of modern point of where we're up to on the reconstruction of the mills. We decided to be a little bit more diagrammatic about certain products of the app, because what we really wanted to do was to, in order to make it sort of, let me explain this a little bit better. With the app, I didn't want to make a digital reconstruction of Glossop and then just try and run it through an app, because there wouldn't be enough computational power. So we had to split it into sort of three main sort of bits. And these were the sort of basic diagrammatic models like this, where people could sort of look at the town, sort of see the key buildings and orientate themselves and see sort of how it had changed over the time period. The other point was then going to be just a few more images of sort of what the model looks like. Another one would be a more detailed version of this. Again, this is early development of sort of like a Google 360 Street View. So then you're using images and pre-rendered images rather than actually using the computational power of the device you're on. So, for example, viewers could select a certain point at a certain time from the app and then see what the mills looked like 100 years ago from a sort of street level view. So that was the idea. Another thing, as I said, I mentioned physical models for exhibition. So this is a projected augmented model. So I had the terrain data for Glossop, and you can see this sort of little aerial image there. This actually is the geometry and the terrain. And the idea was to sort of have a projection show on a physical model, again showing how the town had changed over the last sort of century and a half. And then, I say it wouldn't just be one image; it'd be various ones again showing different things. So again, just another effective approach to really explain the whole concept. A little bit more of a technical note for some of the way we went about getting the most from the models. Because I was on site as well, laser scanning, I was able to take quite accurate images of the buildings, and particularly images of the stonework and the texture. So if any been to Glossop, you might recognise this sort of stone from the town hall. So what I was able to do was create the model in high detail, map the textures to it, sort of stone by stone almost, and then render the whole elevation, and then reapply the texture to a more sort of less detailed model, like the one at the bottom here. So here you've only got the window opening, but it looks very similar to the detailed one because the textures are really accurate. So again, just accurate documenting on site, and really, being on site and getting as much information as I could from the word go. I've got a little animation clip just to finish off on, and if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to ask me about them. Just thanks to Leicester University and everyone else involved in the project, and Stella for the app. Again, with some of the app content, the idea was you wouldn't have sort of one long video clip as well. It would be sort of broken up into a smaller version of just individual buildings, so people could sort of have a sample of what it was like.
Can I just ask, who were you particularly aiming this app at? Did you have a particular user in mind?
Basically anyone who's interested in discovering the history of Glossop, as I said, and also the community heritage group to use and add data to, because creating the digital model allows them to then have something visual they can see, and they can attach data to this then to certain views. Before, if they said, oh, there's something we know, well, this particular type of building, like an internal shot or something, or some text they want to add to it, they can then do that, but at least when they have something like this, they actually have something to pin their idea to, rather than just some text or some images.
So, is there scope within the app? You might have just answered this, I'm not sure, but is there scope within the actual app itself for people to upload their own images to it and things like that?
Yeah, I believe that's the fine idea, I think.
Okay, so it's almost a bit of community participation, kind of surveying as you go along.
Yeah, but the aim would be to have within the app the option to sort of what called user-generated content, so people can upload their own thoughts, and if they've got images and things like that, they're free to do that.
So this app,
it's not directly through the app, but through the app to things like Facebook or Twitter or something.
So this will put the main structure into place with the visuals and the graphics, and then they can, again, continue to hunt up more content to add to it.
So are you saying that there will be a tool set available to be able to add information into
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
We've done it with other apps in the past, and I think it's the same
Yeah.
case with this one, yeah.
Okay.
Because obviously these
And
continue to grow over time.
a public performance perspective, you would expect to add some sort of commentary to that, I guess, would you?
Yes, yeah. This was just, as I said, a
Yeah,
sample.
sure.
It's still a few months off yet from launching it, but just to give you a sort of idea of what's
Sure.
sort of the content might be in the app and how it's sort of in keeping with the graphics.
Okay, right, thank you.